Thank you for that incredible introduction. I feel so ready to come present now. Thank you guys so much for having me here. Who's having a good time already? Yeah? Everyone having a good time? All right, it is awesome to be here. My name is Peter Smart. I'm the head of product at Fantasy. We're a product innovation team based in San Francisco and in New York City. And we're going to get down straight to this because I have 25 minutes to talk to you about the future of human-computer interaction. We're going to dive straight in. And we're going to start off with an experiment. Now, I can almost guarantee that maybe even 99% of you have one of these in your pocket. Yeah? All right, if you do, lift it up. Hold it up. That's it, above your head. I want to see every single one. All right, okay, you guys look great. Right now, I want you to hold it up and I want you to swap it with the person next to you. What? What is going on? Okay, and when you have that new phone, I want you to put that new phone in your pocket. All right, do it. All right, who feels uncomfortable right now? Yeah? Who feels naked right now? Who is doing something they shouldn't have been doing and now they're scared the person next to them is going to find out? Yeah? Why is this feeling so weird? Why is this feeling so terrifying? This feeling is the premise that I'm going to talk to you guys about today. You can't swap back now. You have to hold on to them. I will let you know when it's time. I will let you know when it's time. All right, thank you so much for having me. Let's do this. Why is this so weird? Our relationship with technology is changing. It's changing all around us. Who remembers their first computer? Yeah? There we go. If you're anything like me, this was your first computer. This was my Windows 3.1 compact machine, and I remember seeing this thing for the first time. I remember seeing it there. It was this novel, this alien thing. My parents even gave me this thing called computer time, which I was only allowed on my computer for 1 hour a day. But think about how the world has changed right now. For most of us, maybe 80% of us, this is the first thing that we now interact with in the morning. It's our devices. It's this. A study was done back in 2015. 80% of us, the first thing that we interact with in the morning is our mobile phone. It is the last thing for most of us that we interact with before we go to sleep. That's crazy. Did you know that you have more skin-to-skin contact with your device than you have with anything or anyone else in your life? Can you believe that? If you're here with your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, your boyfriend, just think about that for a second and reevaluate your choices. Let's think about that for a second. You have more skin-to-skin contact with this thing than you do with anything else. Our relationship with technology is changing. Now, you can swap your phone back now. Now is the time. Okay. All right, well, throughout human history, there have been these 4 major shifts in our existence defined by new relationships with our tools. Several million years ago, we had the hunter-gatherer age. This is when new tools allowed us to extend our physiology and actually survive better. This lasted several million years. Then we had the agricultural age. The agricultural age only lasted several 100,000 years, but it was at this point that new tools allowed us to move from this period of feast and famine to actually settle, to actually start to move from survival into thriving and build communities. Tools completely changed our relationships and our experience as human beings. We then had the industrial age. The industrial age lasted several hundred years, but again, it gave us this ability to really completely change the way that we were able to create and to produce. And then finally, in only the last under 30 years, 26 years, only 26 years, we had the birth of the internet, the information age, and this again completely changed the way that we were able to communicate and completely changed the way that we as a human species disseminate and read information. Throughout history, in each of these ages, a new relationship with our tools completely changed our human experience, and at each one of those stages, this advance in our tools, these new tools that we created, also changed us as well. So I'm going to do a very quick little experiment here. All right, what is your mum's cell phone number? Hands up if you know. Do you know? Most of you know. Could you recite it off by heart? Maybe, but for most of us in this room, these things that we have become our memory. How do you get from here to the train station? For most of us, these things have actually become our navigational units. It's the only way that we know how to get around these days. What does a salamander look like? Now, I know what most of you are thinking. Most of you are thinking, I think it's a lizard. Hands up, lizard. Some of you are thinking maybe a snake. Yeah, who doesn't really know what a salamander looks like? Yeah, a lot of you. Okay, this is what a salamander looks like. It is half lizard and it is half snake and it is disgusting. This is a terrible looking thing. All right, when is your anniversary? Now, my wife is in the room. She doesn't know this. Hi, Kathleen. I had to look this up on Facebook the other day. These things are becoming our memory. See, the lines are blurring between us and our technology. And that's going to mean that for most of us, these things are becoming extensions of us. More is going to change in the way that we interact with our technology, with our tools in the next 20 years, or the next 10 years rather, than it has done in the last 200 years. What I want to talk about today is the age of augmentation. And what we mean by augmentation is the extension, the technological extension of what makes us truly human. Now, typically this talk is split up into 3 parts. It's the mind, it is the senses, and it's language. We're only going to have time to look at one of these today, but it is going to be great. So let's do this together. All right, everybody ready? Let's do this. All right, I'm going to set you guys a challenge. Your challenge is this. You have to get yourself from here in LA to New York. You're going to have to, I'm going to give you some constraints. It has to last, your trip has to last precisely 30 days. It can't be any fewer days, it can't be any more, and you're going to have to do it for under $500. How are you going to do that? Let's think about that. What are you reaching for right now? What tools are you thinking about? Hands up if you're thinking maybe Google Maps would be the first thing that you would go to. Yeah, maybe you would go to Google. Maybe you would go to the Amtrak website. You'd go to the YCA hostel website. You're starting to think of these tools. Our minds are incredible machines. Our minds are incredible problem-solving machines. They are really, really good at flexibly and nimbly grabbing at the tools that we have around us to try and solve problems. We will use any tools that we can find. But since time immemorial, there has been this really strong distinction between our minds and our tools, which is this. It's that our minds are completely active and our tools are completely passive. Our tools are completely passive. They can't do anything that they weren't told to do or pre-programmed to do or created to do. They can only do the things that you tell them to do. A scalpel can only cut where the surgeon tells that scalpel to cut. It can't cut itself. If you think about this, Alexa can only do the things that she is pre-programmed to do. She can't do anything that she wasn't coded to do. Next time you ask Alexa, think of the poor engineer. Next time you ask Alexa, what is the latest sports score, for example, or what's the weather, or buy me something from Amazon, someone has had to painstakingly sit there and write that exact commands for you to actually even say that. That is the sort of passiveness that our tools have today. But what if I told you that all of that was about to change? So we're going to do a very quick thought experiment here. Hands up in the room if you're a Ryan Gosling fan. Ryan Gosling fans. Okay, we've got one down here. I'm going to come down to you. All right. Gosling fans. Okay, what's your name? Shay. All right, Shay, we're going to get you a date with someone who looks like Ryan Gosling tonight. You ready for this? Yeah. All right, let's do this. Okay, Shay, how long have we got before this evening? It's probably maybe 8 hours, maybe 9 hours. How are we going to do this? We're probably going to need a net and directions to Ryan Gosling's house. Yeah? No, that's going to get us arrested. No, we're going to think of something else. We're going to have to start maybe going for quantity and probability. We're going to sign you up for dating services. All right, name, Shay. Age, who knows? Description, likes design conferences, likes sitting down. Okay, great. We're going to sign you up for all of these dating services now, Shay. We're going to go onto Match.com. Let's see what we've got. Here's a whole bunch of creeps on there. You do not want to be there. Let's go over to here. Let's go to Bumble. I heard Bumble earlier. Let's use Bumble. Let's sign you up. Whew, this is pretty exhausting. Okay, great. Wow, time is ticking here, Shay. We're not getting anywhere fast. We're going to have to sign you up for Tinder. I hope you are ready. We are going to swipe right on anybody who looks even vaguely like Ryan Gosling. Okay, let's do this. Wow, we are running out of time. But Shay, I have good news for you. At the last minute, someone has replied, and we've got you a date with someone who looks like Ryan Gosling. This is great news. Give Shay a massive round of applause. All right. So let's just think about what just happened there just for a second. This is the point for all of that kafefe you had to just go through. Here's the point. What I just had to do there was extremely, extremely manual. Okay? I had to do something incredibly manual to get Shay a date with someone who looked like Ryan Gosling. First of all, I had to know exactly how I was going to do it. I then had to use, there's 2.2 million apps on the App Store. 2.2 million. There's probably several 100,000 dating apps at this point. I don't know. But I have to know what I'm doing. I have to go through all this manual work to get Shay down to a result. But what if that was all about to change? This is Viv. Viv is an artificially intelligent operating system made from the creators of Siri. But unlike Siri and Alexa, you have to know what you want to say to them. They have to be pre-coded to do anything for you. Viv is special. Viv is magic. Viv is actually able to, if you ask it to do something for you, it doesn't necessarily know how to do it, but it's able to go and write its own pre-code to go and find you an answer to something. Instead of you having to think about what you're going to have to do, go to this process of press the home button on this application, okay, great, find the information, all right, move on to this application, synthesize that information and move on. Viv does something magical. Viv goes away, identifies the skills, the tools that she's going to need, and it's able to simultaneously process that information and come back to you guys with a result without you having to lift a finger. This is an amazing thing. And this watershed moment in technology is called apps to APIs. And what that means is that for the first time, we as human beings are going to move from this state of our tools being completely passive to actually tools being able to act and think on our behalf. This is why companies like Facebook and Google and Samsung, many of whom we work with, are feverishly working on this stuff right now. They really want to be first to bring this to market and be the first to make this publicly available. Why? Why is this the case? Well, because it does some amazing things. It removes two really important barriers in our lives as human beings. The first is this. In order to get anything done, you actually have to know how you're going to do it. You actually have to know the methodology that you're going to use to go and achieve something in your life, the tools that you might pick up to do it. The second thing is that you actually have to learn and then retain that knowledge. At each of these stages, you're actually going to have to learn the information on this application, take it on, and then synthesize it with information over here. But what Viv does, and the technologies like it, mean that these two barriers to entry get removed. And when they are, the world of possibility becomes open. I know I used a really frivolous example, which is getting a date with Ryan Gosling, but when this technology comes along and is made public, this is the kind of stuff that will enable us to do. Buy me food for great dinners that will help me lose weight, get down to my target weight this week. Find me the best neighborhood to raise my child. Buy everything I'll need to build myself a boat and help me know how to take care of my aging parents. What does this mean? What does this mean for us as human beings? What does this mean for us as designers? Suddenly at this point in time where, again, our tools are going to be able to change the way that we get things done. So what I want to talk to us about today is what this means for us as designers and the way that we might start thinking about interactions with this form of technology. Because I think the most important thing that we need to be thinking of as designers is how we build trust with this form of computer, this form of tool. The examples I just used there, go away and choose the food that I'm going to eat this week. Are we really going to trust this technology to choose the food that we're going to eat this week? Help me buy the items to build a boat. Am I really going to trust it to do that? Help me find the best place in this city to raise my son or my daughter. Am I really going to move house based on the information that I get from a tool like this? And so the really important thing that we'll need to think about is trust. I want to split this down into 3 parts. Communication is the first part of that. Now, good communication with machines is really, really important because for most of us, our daily interaction with technology looks something like this.
Alexa, tell me about diabetes.
Shuffling songs by Bee Gees.
Hey Siri, what's the weather?
Calling your boss.
Google, navigate to my house.
Deleting all of your contacts.
Alexa, what's the latest news? Alexa, turn the music up to 10. Help Siri, call me an ambulance!
Okay, from now on I'll call you an ambulance.
Alexa, turn the music down! Alexa, turn the music down! Alexa!
And have you noticed how we speak to these machines as well? We say things like this: Alexa, phone home mum now. Or Siri, call Uber. We speak in these very Tarzan ways. Me, Pete, you, Alexa. Like, why do we do this? It's because we're forced to communicate in these really non-natural ways. We're forced to communicate like this. You are either speaking yes or no. You've either said the right thing, yes or no. I've heard you, yes or no. All human-computer interaction with technology is forcibly put into binary, and that is not how we speak at all. Imagine walking around the conference and you're introducing yourself to someone, and then 5 seconds into the conversation, that person stops listening and says, okay, from now on I will call you Peter. Like, that's not how we communicate at all. We communicate with depth, with meaning. We hesitate, we stutter, we don't know what we're going to say before we say it. This is how humans actually communicate. And so we as designers will have to think about, what does real communication look like for these machines in order for us to actually trust that these things understand what we truly mean. The world-famous educator Peter Drucker said this. He said that the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. Now, our language is imbued. It's filled with meaning. It's filled with possibility. It's got emphasis and tone. And if computers don't learn how to recognize the smallest differences in sentences, we could be in for some really sticky situations. You know what I mean? This could be terrible. All right, this is why at Fantasy we're developing things like this. This is a design language for real human communication, an understanding of how a machine can demonstrate it's aware of tone and depth and emotion and sentiment behind what you say. And this will be some of the really important things that we'll have to think about as designers. The second part is making the process visible. This, I think, is really important because if we're going to trust these machines to go away and decide how they're going to get something done, how are we going to trust that they're going to do it in the right way? This thing's going to go build me a dating profile? Am I really going to go trust it to do that? So actually showing the process is really, really important. And I think the analogy that we can use here is a bit like driving, or being driven, should I say, in an autonomous car. I don't know if many of you have had that experience yet, but it's super freaky. But you have your loved ones in the car, you're sat there in the driving seat, and you're letting this thing drive you. Why? Like, surely you should be like running the heck away from that thing, but why are you trusting it? Why are you letting it drive you and your loved ones at maybe 70 miles an hour down the freeway? There's two really important things going on here. The first is the awareness of context, and the second is active feedback. So the awareness of context, or the communication of context, is this vehicle is showing you it knows what it is doing. It is showing you that it sees the lines on the road. It's showing you that it sees the danger around, the other cars that might be there, that the curve is coming up. The second thing that it's doing is this active feedback process. You can actually feel the car always constantly correcting itself, driving itself, taking that corner really cautiously and really carefully. And these two things will be the sorts of principles that we have to think about if we're going to let machines and technology start to take the wheel from us and start to get things done for us. And the last thing I want to talk about is this, which is co-creation. So I think there's a smart guy called Albert. He said this: imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, but imagination circles the world. I think that's really true, because one of the most exciting things that I think about when we get to use this technology and when we get to play with it and experiment with it at Fantasy is that using this technology just for knowledge is great. I mean, we could use this thing, we could use this technology to go and be a task rabbit, subservient slave that is going to go out and find loads of information for me and kind of report back. But I think one of the most amazing things that we'll have as human beings is this opportunity to set these machines in motion and learn to surf with them. Imagine this, setting this machine in motion and being able to co-create with it. This is generative design from Autodesk. And what's happening here is this computer has been given a task. It's been given the task of creating a drone. It's been given some constraints. Make it have 4 propellers. Make it with a certain material. Let's make it as aerodynamic as possible. But what is happening here is that this machine is able to explore the entire possibility space in time that would be completely inconceivable for you or I. If we were to try and go through all these possibilities ourselves, it would take us months or maybe even a year to go through and explore all these different possibilities and work out which ones were viable. But instead, when this machine is doing this, it frees us up as human beings to actually spot the interesting patterns, to let our imaginations free, to see the things which are interesting, to spot the things which might be interesting avenues to explore, to direct this computer to keep creating down these veins and ultimately create something which neither one of us could independently without each other. So the age of augmentation is all about the technological extension of what makes you truly human. And I think as designers, we're going to have this amazing responsibility. In fact, we already do, because this is already happening. These machines are already becoming the extension of us. And I think as designers, we have this amazing responsibility because we can either create technologies that lock us into our devices or set us free. The immense power of this technology that is coming very, very soon will either be fantastic, or the interface that is used for us to interact with it will completely make it worthless, because people won't trust, they won't believe, they won't know how to interact with this technology. But as designers, we get to shape that. We can either lock people into their devices, we can either set them free, we can either drive them crazy, or we can bring about the next era of human progress. I've been Peter Smart, and thank you very much for listening.